This is Vic Chopra of Unincarcerated Productions, and you're listening to Justice Delayed.
You decide what you want to be when you grow up.
Imagine witnessing a family member executed by the state with your own eyes. Now imagine having to go through this twice. This is what Stan Allridge had to endure when he watched two of his brothers put to death by the state. Two visceral memories burned into his mind. He's an example of the other victims of the death penalty. Like Sister Helen Prejean, who counseled Stan's older brother before he was executed, Stan is a death penalty abolitionist and discusses his heartbreaking story with Jodie and Billy. This is Justice Delayed.
Stan, I have a number of questions for you, and the first one, given your experience with the death penalty, losing a brother in 1995 in Texas and another brother in 2004, have you heard from any families who lost loved ones in the federal execution spree before Trump left office?
I have not heard from them. Typically what happens is I work with several different organizations and that's where my interaction comes from. So a little bit earlier on, I was really involved with it, but not as much anymore. So sometimes I just get called for kind of special projects, but no, I haven't spoken with any of the families. No.
Well, let me ask you this. Of course, I read about each one of the inmates who was executed and all the facts around the case, and there were several of them who probably should have received reprieves because of various different issues, including mental health and other evidence that perhaps should have been investigated. So when you saw 13 people rushed into the execution chamber at the end of the Trump administration, how did that make you feel?
That is, that's a tough question. It's a type of feeling that is really kind of hard to put into words. Just because you relive it every time I get an email or hear about an execution or state, it makes me kind of relive that part of my life that I went through with our family. And it's, you just kind of wonder where the compassion is at. You wonder, and then deep down inside, that everybody is not guilty. And so it's one of those things where you go like, in my head, I'm thinking, what's the rush? Why are we rushing for this? It's a very uncomfortable feeling, Jodie. It just is. It's just uncomfortable. You have to relive it. I stay in tune as much as I can, but I try not to overwhelm myself with it. But it's really hard to put in words. It's not a comfortable feeling at all. It's very uneasy, and I worry about the families a lot. That's the part that bothers me because I am one.
How deep does that feeling go? You say you relived what happened to your brothers. What you feel, you said it's uncomfortable. Is it anger? Is it grief? Is it amazement at the lack of compassion? What is it?
It's a little bit of all of that mixed in. It was anger for years, and now I've learned to control the anger. The biggest thing for me is that you hear a lot of statements about, how do you, let people know that killing is wrong, right? That different phrase, and you go like, well, you kill them, right? You give them the death penalty. And so, what is that solving? So I don't understand if people know that it's really not solving anything at all. It's not. It basically recreates another circle. It's another domino. So it starts off another chain reaction for those families as well, too. So, but yeah, the feelings are a little bit mixed at times. I do bounce back from, sadness to anger, to, trying to figure out exactly where the compassion is absent at. It's just, I want to stay away from it, but I can't, right? Because it's, it might be an email or it might be a news flash in the evening. And I've tried to stop watching news as much as I can. But it's one of those things that when I relive it, it just makes me go back through everything that I've been through before with my brothers and the visits and witnessing those executions and knowing that not all of those families those inmates are guilty. That's the real sad part about it, that we're executing innocent people.
I would say so. Now, you had And I've got that book right here, Texas Death Row.
Yes.
You had Ronald executed in 1995 and James in 2004. So you were very young when Ronald was executed. I think just out of high school, you told me, just barely 18 years old. And I witnessed an execution myself. Of course, I was a person who had interviewed that inmate about 6 months earlier for a story, and I was very familiar with him because the only contact I ever had with him was that interview, but I sat in the editing bay and I rolled the tape back and forth, trying to pick out just the right exact quotes to put in my story. So I was very familiar with his phraseology, very familiar with his gestures, very familiar with how he expressed himself, and that gave me the impression sort of that I knew him. But these were your brothers. How hard was it at age 18 to watch Ronald die? Because as you told me, the first time you went to prison, you were so young, and your mother tried to make that seem like a natural thing. Okay, we're going to see Ronnie, and she kept everybody upbeat and so on and so forth. So, and then just after you get out of high school, they kill him.
Yeah, it was very confusing. I mean, at that point, I had literally, that April I turned 18, that May I graduated, and less than a few weeks later, I'm sitting in Huntsville, Texas, witnessing, the execution of my older brother. It was very confusing. It was a lot of unknown. It was, you fall asleep and you wake up going, why? Trying to figure it out. It's a lot of crying. So at that point, it was a lot of sadness, and it just made me realize that you really don't have as much control in the world as you really think you do, but you have to learn to control the things that you can. And so I don't know if my brothers did that, but for me, what I was trying to do was control the things that I could to live my life. I mean, I'm 18. I'm getting ready to, have my first job and get off and ready to go to college, and kind of, start adulthood, as most people would say. And so for myself, I was thankful that my mom did try to make it seem as normal as possible, but the execution itself was difficult. The visitations are one thing. The visitations are one thing. I mean, it was at times where I would drive down and visit my brother by myself. So visitation is one thing. That death house is a completely different thing. It's not something that like you witness in movies. You've been there. It's not that. It's completely different. And so it carries a whole nother level of emotion with it.
Explain the loyalty you felt for those brothers. You told me that you stood in the witness box, even at that young age, out of loyalty, because you said when I interviewed you for the article in the crime report, you didn't want them to die with people who hated them watching and not have anybody who loved them there for them. And so that loyalty is what stood you up in that witness box.
Absolutely. It's not something that, that you obviously want to witness, but when that option came up and we had that conversation with our brother about witnessing and he can choose, obviously the victim's family, they're there. We made that decision, amongst my brothers, that we just couldn't let him be there, by himself, looking at people that hated him. It's eerie to kind of think about, because of the whole process that you go through. I mean, I can still see, him, hooked up and on the gurney, and you can see the reflection of the family because it's kind of glasses and windows, I guess is probably the best way to say it. You can see, so it's somebody in the next room over, but it's a very eerie feeling. And so I didn't want my brother to go away looking at somebody that hated him. We know that he had done wrong, but that was something that for ourselves that we felt like we wanted to have his back, and let him know that we still loved him as a brother, and we didn't want him going out, looking at someone that hated him. So that's why, ultimately I made that decision along with my other brothers as well.
Was that the first time you ever saw anybody die? Most people have never seen anybody die by the time they reach 18 years old. Was that the first time for you?
Yeah, absolutely. That was the first time. I mean, I grew up fishing, and so that was about the extent of, any death I seen was, fishing. But yeah, no, as far as, real life, that was it. I've heard of things that I'd lost close friends, but I'd never been there in person to witness it.
Tell me about Ronnie. He was the oldest brother. That's what you told me. You told me your dad was military and your mom was a great Christian woman. I can tell that you loved them. I'm very interested in hearing about Ronnie because he was the oldest brother and you were the youngest. So you were 18. How old was he when he lost his life in the execution chamber?
It's 17 years difference from us.
17 years difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were going to visit him when you were just like 7 years old. And then for his first offense, which you said you thought, but you weren't sure, he had attacked a bully in the schoolyard and he got sent to prison and then he gets out. What was it like as a 7-year-old to go visit a brother in prison, and how happy were you when he came home?
I remember the day he came home. Wow, that was a very interesting day. It's very scary going to prison. The whole concept of prison is designed to intimidate people, right? From the 10 or 12-foot fence with the barbed wire to the iron gates, the security guards with rifles and shotguns, a lot of the inmates themselves. So it's very intimidating. At 7, I don't know if you really know exactly what intimidation is, but I felt that, when you step inside those prison gates, you have no control, you have no power. You just hope everything goes well. And it's not to say that you're in harm's way, but I go like, you could be, right? You have no idea. It's been riots in Huntsville, right? So it's all kind of things that happen. It's a lot of trustees that's out there as well too. So when you walk inside those gates, it's a very uneasy feeling. It's probably the way I would describe it. But then it's joy getting to see your loved one, because it's no phone calls in prison. Well, at that time it may have been. I don't know if we've ever accepted any or if we ever had any. I know in jail you do, but in prison where my brother was at, I don't ever remember talking to him on the phone. So it's when they're gone, right? You don't see them. You have letters that you write. So when you walk inside those prison walls, it's very intimidating, but you get a chance to see them, and it's a lot of suspense. Jodie, what happens is you're waiting for that inmate, which is my brother, to come out, because they got to go get him, and all these different things that they go through with time, because it's procedures to everything. And so when you see him, come through that visitation door, it's just like, there he is, right? So it's this joy that you get a chance to see your brother, and then we have 2 hours to visit, I think is the time frame. So it was an interesting time because we tried to make the best of it. Like it's the time where I don't know what the laws of commissary is, but it's a treat to be able for him to say, hey, I want a Snickers, and for my dad to give me, a handful of quarters and go get some Snickers or potato chips or a certain soda, and and so they can buzz it through the gate. So it's things like that as a 7-year-old that I enjoyed and I had fun with, even under the circumstances. But it was, when I look back at it now, I go like, boy, as a 7-year-old, you sure want to be spending your time doing other things, but that's not how I seen it then, right? I'm spending time with my family under the circumstances. You wait a lot, right? You wait for the inmate to come out. You wait to go in because there's limitations. When he got home, I remember them telling us we're going to go get him, because I think he had to ride the bus home. And I just remember seeing him, he got on the back of my dad's pickup truck, and he had a hat on and I think like a little t-shirt, maybe some jeans. And it was just, it was the first time that I had seen my brother and he was not behind bars, right?
What?
That was the first time that I seen him. That my other brothers are older, so they may remember different things, right, with trials and things like that. But for me, he went in the year that I was born, so I had never seen him outside of the prison walls. And
So he comes home. And this is the first time that you see him, and it just opens up a world of joy. my question at this point is, how did Ronnie go wrong? He wasn't home very long before they sent him back, and this time to death row. What with a military father with all those rules and your mom and everything, what do you think caused Ronnie? I know you told me for his first sentence they sent him to this prison in Texas, which was one of the most notorious, and he goes in at a very young age with all these hardened criminals. And I think you told me you believe between 17 when he went in, 17, 18, and 27 when he got out, they influenced his life much more than your parents. Is that how you think it happened?
That's my personal opinion. I mean, I believe the strongest thing that can influence an individual is who they associate with. And so for 7 years, you associated with criminals, right? So, that's my personal opinion of it. I wasn't there, right? But That's what I feel that he had associated with the wrong group of people, because I knew how I grew up and I knew how my other brothers that were home that, they grew up. But, that's my opinion is that, yeah, he is, for those 7 years, he associated with people, the wrong, the wrong group of people. And when he got out, he had ideas and that he wanted to test out and try out. And so that's my personal opinion of what may cause him to be on the right track. My dad was a little different. My dad was, you got to get a job. You out now, you got to get to work. So he did. So he got a job, delivering pizza. That's what his job was. And it didn't take him long to save up money and get a car. I remember the little car he got, a little blue 2-door hatchback car, and he set some type of records for delivering a certain amount of pizzas in a day, or something goofy like 73 or something, right? So yeah, so he got home and got to work, but you had 7 years of thinking of ways to be able to make money or a different way. So I believe that's what happened from that. Absolutely.
One last question before Billy asked you that. So what sent him to prison? Because he was out for less than a year.
Yeah, they committed robberies. I call them stick-ups. So they committed robberies, with fast food, restaurants and gas stations or convenience stores, as you would call them. And at one of those restaurants, that's where one of the murders had taken place. And so that's what he was convicted for the second time.
Okay. And so also Vernon, death row in 2004, he was convicted of a similar crime?
Yeah, they were all together.
Okay.
Total 4,
all right.
My 2 brothers and 2 other gentlemen. So my brothers got the death penalty. The other 2 guys, I don't remember. They didn't get the death penalty. I know that.
Stan, let me circle back a minute. You were speaking a while ago about being in the death chamber, and you were there because you didn't want your brother to die alone, to be around before people who hated him. And so obviously you felt some hatred and ill will in the whole process there. Did you ever feel that it was racial? Did you ever feel that part of the hatred came because of race that was involved in the case?
Oh, at that time, I didn't. I had no idea to even think anything about race at that point in time. I wasn't. Now, later on that I learned and I looked back at some of the different cases and looked at my brother's case and looked at things, how he was represented, things like that. I go like, okay, because truth be known, my brother was a young African-American male, and, unfortunately the young lady he ended up, killing she was a young white lady, a sheriff's daughter, I believe, that was working at one of those restaurants. So, but at
being a female and sheriff is the first death penalty aggravating factor, and being the daughter of a sheriff would happen to be the second aggravating factor, right?
Yes.
Well, one other question here at this point, because you went and you wanted to represent the family, and your father was a strong gentleman, disciplined individual. Did your parents ever come to terms with this as you did? Did they ever really fully grasp the magnitude of it and come to terms that their son had been put to death by the state of Texas?
I don't know if any family ever comes to terms with that. I don't personally believe that my mom and dad did. My mom was extremely forgiving person. This was not the only time that she lost a family member. I mean, her mother was murdered. One of her sisters was murdered. Her father was murdered. And this all happened within a 2-year time frame. And so, my mom was extremely faithful and forgiving. So she taught me to learn to forgive. So I learned to forgive and not necessarily move on, but to live with it, I guess, a different way and not carry a burden. My dad, I think it did carry a toll on my dad a lot longer. And I don't feel like that he ever kind of came to terms with it. I always felt like that he carried some burden. Maybe he thought it was, some type of, maybe his fault, somehow. Now being a dad, I kind of understand. I kind of get that feeling as well too, because I have a son now. I don't personally feel like he ever, kind of completely came to terms with it at all.
You were the youngest of the 5 boys. Tell me what your other 2 brothers thought of Ronnie and Vernon.
Of Ronnie and Vernon? Well, that's interesting because it's a big time frame. Like I said, we're 17 years apart. I have another brother that is about 2.5 years older than me, and then one that's about 5 years older than me. But when all of this was going on, we didn't talk about it a whole lot. It's kind of one of these interesting things. I mean, my mom made it try to seem as much, normal as possible. The neighborhood that I grew up in, the area I grew up in, a lot of people have folks that go to jail and go to prison. So everybody kind of knows. It's just, I was a step further with this death row, right? But they made it seem normal. So we didn't really talk too much about it. I mean, we missed our brothers, but I never really spent a lot of time with my brother, right? Ronald was doing time, and when I first seen him, he was 7. Well, I had a summer, I think maybe about not even a year, maybe about 10 months before he went back in. So I never really had a chance to spend much time with him at all. But my other brothers, I'm really not for sure what they felt about it or what they felt about them as much. I know they loved them. They went with us to, for visitation, but we never talked in depth about it at all.
I know you mentioned your parents. Is there anything, I've often wondered how they felt about it? I know you said your father probably never got over the burden. Your mother was a very forgiving person, even though she lost a number of relatives. I don't know in crimes or exactly how that happened, but she was a lovely woman who believed in forgiveness. So did your parents ever say anything to you about your brothers, about how they felt?
Well, I know my mom she didn't completely understand the system, how it all connected and made sense. Again, us having a conversation at 18 years old when this originally happened, I felt like for a couple of years we tried to pretend like it really didn't happen. We didn't have a whole lot of conversations about it. But I remember my mom talking about, well, it's the law. They broke the law. They paid the penalty, and I was like, yeah, but death, right? And so I really, it's gonna probably come off the wrong way. I really didn't care as much of how my brothers or my mom or dad felt about it, because I have to live with myself. So for me, it was like, what do I need to believe in, or what do I need to get a grasp of? So I can learn to move forward and be, a positive influence in my community, and for me to make, just to make a living and make a difference. So I really couldn't. I hate to say I didn't really care about what they said, but we didn't talk about it, and I don't know if it really would have influenced my decision at all. Because at that point, I had to start making decisions for myself.
Did you ever get the sense that your mother and father, in the privacy of some moment among themselves, discuss Ronnie and what happened and how did this happen? I mean, you think that together?
Oh, absolutely. My mom and dad, they talked a lot about it because, at that particular point, I was, their bedrooms was not too far from me. So I could hear them talking about certain things, At that point, I'm a senior, just graduating high school, trying to figure out college, but I could hear some of their dialogue and conversation of them trying to figure out different things and what happened, talking through it as parents.
Yeah.
But not for me. I didn't participate in those conversations at all.
Now as I recall, you told me your parents did not attend the executions. You at 18 and those other two brothers did. So there are three boys standing in the witness box, but the parents were not there, you
Right.
told me, for very good reason, but they were not there.
That's correct. Yeah, they made that decision. My dad had he had a heart condition, which he had a pacemaker for, and I personally, I don't feel like he believed that health wise he would even make it through that, and then my mom, I don't think my mom had any intentions to see that at all, and I didn't as well. But like I said, that was a decision that I made with my brothers.
So I have a question. Will you ever tell your son what happened? We talked about him the other day and all the fun he's having and stuff he's doing and how busy he is. And I told you, well, when a kid is that busy and doing so many different things and so curious, you can tell this kid's got a really high IQ. And I know you and your wife just absolutely adore him. Do you plan to share this with him someday?
Oh, absolutely. We will, and obviously it's going to be based on his maturity, right? Of what I and my wife believe that we believe that he can accept. So we're gonna have it. It's he's gonna know pictures. He's gonna have access to the internet. So we're not gonna hide it from him. We're gonna have those conversations with him when we feel like the time is appropriate.
I don't know if this is an appropriate question, but I'm assuming. You know what you are when you assume, but do you all plan to have other children? So you will have not just this son to think about and how he might react to it, but other children. How would they react to it?
Yeah, we do plan on extending our family, so we're working on that now as well too. So yeah, we and me and my wife talked about this obviously before I was even married, and we talked about this early on when we were just dating of what happened amongst my family. So we believe in it. We're on the same page with that, with
Okay.
not hiding certain things. So we'll definitely let the kids will know. I don't know how early that happens. I don't know if that happens, when they're maybe a young teenager, or or if they, or they'll be a young adult. I don't know exactly when, but I know my son, so I know he'll ask questions. He's going to see pictures. He's going to ask what happened, where they're at. He lost a cousin last summer, and so he understands that his cousin is an angel now, and so he asks questions. He's very inquisitive, so he will ask questions. So I know we'll probably get to it more sooner than later when I'll have to have that conversation about it.
Now, can you tell me about Vernon? Because he turned out to be an internationally known artist and a poet, and all of that developed while he was on death row. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think Sister Helen supported him, and I believe that Susan Sarandon, I think you told me, flew down from Los Angeles to talk to him in the last years before he lost his life. I think if you could fill people in about Vernon, they would be very interested in hearing about his rehabilitation on death row, because that's what it was.
Yeah, with Vernon, it was very interesting because Vernon never stopped moving. He was I would call him a river, not a pond. He never sat still. He was always moving and pouring things into other people and sharing and connecting. He was a networker. So but this was before the internet. He had tons of pen pals across the country, across the world. We got all kind of cards from condolences coming in from different parts of the world after everything happened. But Vernon he believed that his case was a case that could be commuted to life, right? He believed that his case, because he never had any prior history with anything. He had made this mistake, and he had shown that he's no longer a threat to society, right? And so he showed with different things that he had done since he had been locked up. But yeah, he was a networker. He got in touch somehow with Sister Helen, who ended up becoming his spiritual advisor, and she was with us that last few days, or I think that last week. So we had a chance to find out a little bit more about her, and she supported us through everything. And I got a chance to spend time with her a little bit later as well too, with some different events and speaking engagements. And then Susan came down as well too, and she became a good friend or somebody I could talk to as well. For Vernon, yeah, it was we really thought we had a shot to get the sentence overturned, and when it didn't happen, it hit hard. Ronnie's hit hard. Vernon's was different though. Vernon never slept. Like when you write a letter at night, like that's when I would respond to all his letters. I would see the timestamp. So if he was writing, it'd be 4:42 in the morning or 3:19 in the morning. He would put the the time of when he would start writing the letter, which was kind of interesting because it would always be the time that I'd be responding. It'll be those same type of times. But he burned the midnight oil. He was trying to save his life. He did everything that he could possibly do from where he was at with his with the resources that he had. So he was a fighter. He was going after it, and that's why I jumped on board with him as well too, because he said, Stan, we have a chance, and this can change things for other people as well too. So he was a go-getter. He got after it, and I don't know if he really ever slept. Honestly, I don't think he ever slept. He went after it.
Do you still have nightmares? You told me that as Vernon's execution day approached, you began to see yourself as the inmate. You began to see yourself ordering the last meal. You began to see yourself walking the last mile. Do you still have those nightmares?
They're few and far between. I've had some, but not really recent. But yeah, those are not good dreams to have. They're really great dreams to wake up from, though. Whew. Right? Because you go like, whoa, that's over, right? Because these dreams are probably the realest things that I've ever seen. It's a different level of reality when you're going through it. But they are kind of few and far between. But I did have a phase where I was going through it, and it was really tough to deal with.
You really felt you were there. You really felt you were the one going down to the execution chamber.
Oh yeah,
those dreams.
Oh yeah. I've seen it. I've seen it. I walked that hall. I ordered the meal. I made that last phone call over to the, I guess, quote unquote, safe house where the family is at. Yeah, I've been down that route, and I know a lot of it may be because of with movies as well. Now, years ago, it was Dead Man Walking was about the only movie, but it's been other movies along the way now. And so, when you see it, it kind of sparks that again. But I haven't had them. I don't watch movies much at all anymore, unless it's something that my wife or kid wants to watch. So
you told me those nightmares. You told me those nightmares were so real compared to other dreams you might have had any time in your life, but so incredibly real. They must have been terrifying.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's I've never experienced anything like that. I mean, I've had different dreams and nightmares, as a kid, from watching maybe like a horror movie, with, Boogeyman and Friday the 13th and things like that. Those were scary. Friday the 13th with Freddy Krueger, and chasing after you and you wake up. But those things don't come close. Those things do not come close to living out an execution. It's nowhere close. And when I'm running from Jason or Freddy Krueger or whatever monster movies that they are, you can run, right? You can run and you can hide, you can escape it. You can't escape an execution. When you don't get a stay, it's happening. It's no, I don't feel like it, not today. It's none of that. It's happening, and that made the dream that much more real. It's very heartening to know what people are going through when that happens, and so yeah, it's not like anything that I don't even know if I could really describe it, but I've been through it several times, and you wake up and you want to take the day off. It is exhausting physically and emotionally.
One final question for me. Do you think when Vernon in those last hours because his case had so many compelling reasons for a stay, so many compelling reasons for a commutation. Do you think at what point in those final hours did he really come to terms with this is it? There's no stay. There's no turning back here. They're going to go through with this, and I'm going to be gone in a matter of minutes or a matter of hours.
You know what? With Vernon, I felt like Vernon felt that phone would ring
to the last minute.
I just felt like that he felt that to the very end. I know he had final words, things like that. I just know Vernon, and so if it was anybody that was going to believe that I got a shot, it's going to happen, we can still win, we still got time, it's him. He was the one, which is why it hurt so much, because we were on board. Ronnie had told me that he was tired. Ronald was tired. He was exhausted. So, not to say that I necessarily understand, but I mean, he had spent the majority of his life behind bars in, a high level prison on death row. So, I imagine mentally, if you're not in the right place, obviously, or even if you are, it can wear on you. So I knew Ronnie was tired, but Vernon was after it. So I believe, I don't know if he came to terms with it, but I believe that he felt like that he's going to get that call. I just feel that.
I had a friend who read the article that I wrote about you and the other case in the crime report, and she got to the point where Vernon said his last words, "I love you to the moon and back." She just started crying.
I did too. Yep, I did too. It was unbelievable. Really, it was. I don't wish that on anybody.
That's a heartfelt emotion, Stan. We understand. Believe
Well, we love you to the moon and back. Now I want you to do me a favor, sir. Tell me about your life today. Tell me what you do. Do you ever feel like you're living your life not only for yourself, but for your brothers? Because you're such a success. Things are going so well.
Yeah, I think about that a lot. I mean, now today, I'm at another couple months and me and my wife, Angela, will be 6 months married. 6 years married. And we have a little boy that later this month turns 5 years old, Colin. He makes it worthwhile, right? He makes, everything that I go through every day worthwhile. But my wife and my son make me feel very lucky that I have them every single day. So they're a joy. They make it easy for me to wake up and do the things that I do every day. I love what I do every day. I mean, I'm helping people. I always felt, Jodie, I was put on earth to help people. I just didn't know exactly how. So I didn't know if I was going to be a coach, or a teacher. And then when I got into the banking industry and the financial industry, it came pretty easy to me to be able to explain and relate to people, even with something negative like bank fees, right? So I would explain to them how we can help them with this and get over that. And then I transitioned into this year. Next week actually makes 15 years that I've been in the insurance industry, helping people with insurance and retirement. And I get a chance to help change people's lives, right? Because, when people don't have some of these programs in place and things happen, especially with the year we went through last year with COVID, right? It made people realize, hey, we're all going to go, and some of us can go a lot sooner than what we thought. So I better start getting some stuff in place. And so I get a chance to have those conversations with people about protecting their family. And I'm doing it with really great companies. And it's a joy for me every day to be able to do it. And then I get a chance to help my family and travel the world by doing the right thing. So I got great people that surround me. I have really great mentors and business partners. And my family is they're incredible. Right. They push me to the limits, and then, when we hit certain goals and we get a chance to celebrate together. So yeah, today, right now, I feel like my mom and my dad, my family, my brothers, I have I never met my grandparents. None of them. They were all gone before, I was born, right? So I think a lot about my family. I think about legacy. Like, I specifically chose not to do a job. I wanted to build a business so I could build a legacy so I could have something to leave behind. I can't leave a job behind, right?
Right.
So that's the reason why I went this particular route. And so I feel like I'm in a really good place. I feel like I'm being obedient, right? And I'm doing the right things. And I just got a lot more work to do, right? So I got a lot of more people that need my help. And so that's what the game plan is every day, is to get better, a better version of Stan, so I can be a better dad. I can be a better, husband, right? And a better, friend and family member. So that's what I try to do. I'm by any means perfect, Jody, but I get up and do the best that I can every day. And but yeah, I do. I think about my family a lot. I think about my brothers a lot. I think about Vernon a lot as well too, because I felt like if he would have had some of these opportunities early on in life, he may have not turned down that street. And so, because he turned down, he was working double jobs and making money and out on his own and living. He turned down the wrong street, and that cost him his life. So, yeah, I feel like now I'm in a spot that I'm not done yet, right? He's still working on me, but I feel like I'm doing well. I had a buddy of mine a couple of weeks ago. He asked me, with everything that went on with your brothers, how did you not go that route? Right? Like, how did you not turn down that street? And I said, I could see it. I could see it. You could see that when some of those things were not, positive, I just made those decisions. And that's what life is. It's just decisions. I made those decisions of, I'm not doing that. I could have had a life of crime. It was close. We had access to it, right? It wasn't like something that was really far away. But I just made that decision that I wasn't going to do that. And plus I was scared, right? Because I was like, well, when I'm 7 and 8 and 12 and 13 and visiting my brothers, I get a chance to go home. But I make the wrong decisions, right? I go like, I'd be on the wrong side of those bars and I wouldn't get a chance to go home. So yeah, so that's my life now. We're doing well, and we're working on doing better.
What is your son's favorite thing to do?
Ride on his dad's back. I don't care if that little kid is hungry, if he's having a nosebleed, if he's having a nightmare, if he's tired, or if he's happy, if he's energetic. For some reason, he just wants to climb on my back and let me take him to his room or take him somewhere else. So he's 4 now. He's right at about 61 or 62 pounds. So he probably has about another few months of that. And I'm gonna be riding on his back soon. He loves to be around mom and dad. He really does. He loves to be around mom and dad. And I don't care what we're doing. We can be making pizza. We can be playing marbles. We can be riding a bike. When he's with mom and dad, he is at home. And so we're fortunate that we have the lifestyle now that we can, spend time with him.
That's so great. Do you have any of Vernon's paintings? I've seen them on the internet.
Yeah. We still have access to them, and some of them are framed as well too. So yeah, we still have his drawings.
That's great. Now, last question, and I thank you so much for sharing with us, because I know for some of us it is painful. But I'll tell you something, Stan. You wanted to help people. And this helps people understand that the death penalty creates more victims. That's what it does. And that's what the headline is on the story I had in the crime report. The death penalty's other victims, families of the condemned. And so today you have shared with us what it feels like. People need to know how awful it is and how it scars family members of the condemned. So the last question I have for you, having gone through all of that, if the death penalty is outlawed in the United States, and we know Joe Biden may well do away with the death penalty at the federal level. He has said that's one of the things. But if the states follow suit and the death penalty is outlawed in the United States, how will that make you feel, having lost two brothers during a rather insane period in our history?
Ooh, that'd be a day of celebration. I mean, my brothers are gone. We're not going to get them back, right? And I feel like that may be part of the process, to get us to end this thing, right? It's always some type of sacrifice that happens, right? So, when that happens, I'm not going to say if, I'm just going to say when. When that does happen, I have phone calls and Zooms and Skypes, and I have people that we will be partying with, because it will be a very special day. And I look forward to it. I really do. Every time I get a phone call for a project or interview, I do the best that I can not to turn it down, because I really don't want people to go through what I had to go through. I'm not saying that I'm some type of special individual, but I feel like that I came out with my head above water and I'm doing fine. But I know personally, it's a lot of people that did not, and they didn't do anything wrong, right? They didn't do anything wrong. They were collateral damage of, some of the choices that their family made. So I don't want people to have those nightmares that I had. I don't want people to have to deal with those things that I've dealt with. So I do the best that I can of not turning down anything, that can help us get to that day that we're all praying for. We know it's coming. We just need it a lot sooner than later. And so, that's how I feel about it, Jodie.
Well, you can't imagine how much I admire you for doing what you're doing, because you've never shied away from it, so that you can bring about that day of celebration. Because I really do, Stan. And I really do hope when this pandemic is over, you and your wife and that baby boy will ride on down here to the Texas Hill Country so we can all visit and have some fun together. But you're at the top of the list of the people I admire for what you have lived through, and the fact that you are determined to do as much as you can by sharing your story to keep other people from having to go through what you went through. So bless your heart. God bless you.
It's been great talking to you too, Stan.
Thank you so much. So that makes my heart smile when you say those things. It really does.
Well, we had a great conversation the other day when I called up and asked if you'd do an interview. So I'll be checking on you every so often, and you got to let me know when that boy gets too heavy to carry around on your back, boyfriend.
I think he's already there. I just do it anyway. It's not like I have a choice. He'll just jump on my back. That's what he does.
He loves his daddy, and the thing is, Stan, he's got a great daddy. He really does.
This podcast comes from Unincarcerated Productions and Grindle Industries. Every episode of Justice Delayed is produced and edited by Cameron Collins and Milo Bershane. Music on this episode is from Speculation. Learn more and check out Spec at speculation.bandcamp.com. That's spekulation.bandcamp.com. And of course, head on over to unincarcerated.com to find out more about Unincarcerated Productions. We will see you all next time.